All right, welcome back to the show, guys. Quick one coming at you here Monday. We're ripping this episode off. We have been busy in the business, which is a good problem to have when we do what we do, but it's problematic when we also run a podcast. So this is going to be a quick one, guys. We did want to give you an episode of things to listen to. This will be a combination of market update, things that are going on, some tax break incentives that you should be looking into potentially if you're a first-time home buyer. We'll talk a little bit about refinancing as well, because that's something that Cole's seeing a little bit of. So yeah, this will be your full subjects podcast of full subjects podcast. As always, this is this podcast is for informational purposes only, doesn't constitute legal, tax, investment, financial, or any other advice. It's not intended to cause or induce breach of any existing agency agreement. And let's hop into apparently the rainbow flavored full subjects podcast episode with all the different topics. Cole, take it away.
The smorgasbord, as they say.
Yeah, it's the charcuterie board. It's the buffet of podcast episodes. A little bit for everybody.
So if you could see our text chat, you'd be like, what are these guys talking about today? Like, we were just trying to spitball some ideas, but
everything.
And that's not to say
we're talking about.
not to say we don't have a lot to talk about, but we're gonna throw some random things at you. So I'm gonna drop kind of the first random one here. So it's tax season. Obviously, do your taxes, especially if you owe money. The CRA is coming. They've actually, funny enough, they've hired a bunch of people now that are auditing. There's people getting audited now from previous years, which happens already, but there's a lot more people being staffed to come after you because the government wants their money. So do your taxes, pay your taxes, or they will come calling. And speaking of mortgages, if you don't pay your taxes, they're not going to give you a mortgage. So that's another reason to do that. But where I was going with this, before I went on a little bit of a tangent, is there is a nice incentive for anybody that bought a home in 2024. So if you bought a home in 2024, sorry, not anybody. If you're a first-time home buyer that bought a home in 2024, you can claim a tax credit. And I believe you can get up to $1,500 for this tax credit. I shouldn't say I believe. I know you can get $1,500 for this tax credit. What I also know is that you can split it between two people. So let's say you bought it with your partner, you can each claim $750, not $1,500 each. And hey, that's nice. That's a little bit of money back, or in this case, maybe it saves you on your taxes that you'd have to pay. So claim the tax credit if you're a first-time home buyer, because you can only do it as a first-time home buyer. Other than that, Austin, I was thinking maybe we talk a little bit about refinances. That's a big one right now. But before we do that, Austin...
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, before we do that, we'll just leave people with a little bit of a cliffhanger. Let's talk about the market right now, because you made the joke, or you made the statement that we are busy, which we are. Lots of people are, in my case, are coming up for renewal. Maybe they're looking to make a move. What's going on right now? What are you seeing?
I think there is a ton of people that want to move this year. Bent up demand. There's a lot of inventory. There's a lot of things that are out in the market. We did a full stats episode talking about how inventory is at, historic highs, which is great. Lots to choose from. My biggest advice to people, and again, we know that I just said this is not, real estate advice in my disclaimer. You are going to be in such a more powerful position if you are out in the marketplace shopping, if your home is already sold. Okay. I cannot emphasize this enough. So there are a ton of people that are out in the market. We're seeing most things selling under list price right now. You're kind of seeing things listed more conventionally, I guess let's call it. I know there's no standard practice, but for the most part right now, what I'm seeing people do is list here and then try and aim for something here. There are some things that are purposely being listed lower, trying to get people bidding against each other for sure, but I think that's more the exception, not the rule. If you can get your place listed, get sold, and go out shopping, you are going to be in a 1 billion% better position doing that, as opposed to, let's see if something comes around, see if something I like, hits the market, all that kind of stuff. Get your place sold, do the hard part up front, and you will have all the negotiating power on the other end if you do that. That's my rant.
Well said. Those are the Austin notes for this episode.
Yeah, the Cole's notes for the Austin's version for the segment we haven't come up with a name yet for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well said. I think that really summarizes the fact that if you have a plan, it's a lot easier to execute on what you're trying to achieve, and that's really all there is to it. So let's talk about refinances. We've talked about these before, but why would you refinance? Like, why would I change my mortgage if I'm happy with it? Well, a couple reasons. Number one, maybe the rate you have right now is a rate that you got when rates were higher than they are now, and now there's an opportunity. Let's break that mortgage, which you think, oh my gosh, I should never break my mortgage. I'll get a lower rate, and if the math checks out, which is my job to figure out for you, you might save some money on that mortgage. So yes, you might have to pay a penalty to break that mortgage. Okay, but you can add that penalty to the mortgage, so you're not paying out of pocket for it. And two, if you end up saving more money over the course of your new mortgage than you would have with your current mortgage, well, then you probably should change your mortgage, because now you're actually paying less money over that course of time. That's one reason to refinance a mortgage. You're not even changing really anything other than you're getting a better rate and you're saving money. And when I say saving money, what I mean by that is you're paying less interest. Because your interest rate is lower, you're going to pay less over that period of time because there's less interest on that loan. Sounds simple enough. Most people don't want to do it because it's extra work or because they're a little bit skeptical. But at the end of the day, numbers don't lie, Austin. The math tells the story. And if the math works in your favor, I do think you should consider it. I'm not saying you have to consider it, but it's something that you should look at. What I like to do is I like to reach out to previous clients and I say, hey, look, this is the rate you're at right now, given when you last renewed or when you last bought. Here's what the rate is right now. Here's some math to show you that this is how much you would save if you decided to break your mortgage right now. Is that something you're interested in doing? At the very least, it creates a touch point. I get to talk to the clients. I get to kind of see how things are going. At the best, maybe we get to save them some money. So that's something I like to do. I can guarantee you 100% your bank is not going to do that for you. They do not care. Once they have you, they've got you. They're not going to do that for you. And there's lots of other brokers that do this too. By no means am I the only one, but that's something that I think brokers can add a lot of value to their clients, is by looking for ways to save them money. So that's number one. Go ahead.
Very well put.
The other one is refinance to consolidate debt. So let's say you've got a car loan. Car loans are a little bit trickier, so it's probably not the best example, but let's say you've got credit card debt or you've got lines of credit. A debt on line of credit is probably in their 8 to 10% range. Austin, what's the rate you're going to pay on a credit card typically?
Is that 19 to 20%, depending on who you're with?
Exactly. So now imagine we consolidate that debt into a credit card, into a mortgage. Now we're looking at less than 5% on that debt. That is 4 times less of an amount you're paying on that same debt. That's significant, right? Instead of paying 20%, now I'm paying 5%. I think I would take that any day of the week. So that's another great reason to refinance. And it's happening a lot right now. People want to keep their monthly cash flow at a manageable level. And the best way to do that is to consolidate your debt at the lowest possible interest rate you can get. And in most cases, that's going to be your mortgage. So if you own your home and you want to pay less, I would highly consider looking into that option right now. Other than that, Austin, where do you think things are going to go? Like, I know we talk about this a lot, but given that we did our stats episode, we saw that January was nothing really special. Prices pretty much remain the same. February is almost over now, so we'll have stats for that pretty quickly. Has your sentiment changed at all? Where do you see us going in the next 3 months? So like going into the summer kind of.
I think it's going to be a whole lot more of the same. So looking at the Fraser Valley stats as of February 24th, 2025, currently sitting at 2,343 listing with 669 sales. Last February, we were at 1,900 listings at this point in the month and 853 sales. So more listings, less sales compared to last year. So at least in February. And then also compared to January too, I mean, we're slightly up in sales and slightly down in listings comparison. So that's, I think, good. I think we're seeing probably more people that have sold also purchase. So that's all relative. But yeah, I see things being a whole lot more the same. I see things, kind of staying balanced, maybe getting into buyer's market territory. So again, if you can just get a bite, you can have that leverage when you go and purchase as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. My biggest question is, how long will the market put up with a buyer's market? In other words, how long will it take until people go, hey, it's a buyer's market, maybe I should buy? And then people start to kind of get back into the market. By no means am I expecting a mass exodus of people entering the market, but I think it's realistic that sentiment plays the biggest factor when it comes to how the market can shift, or one of the biggest factors. And all it takes is a little bit of momentum the other way, and you'll start to see more people getting back into the market. And with that, you'll see prices slowly start to increase as well. So as I think we've said many times, Austin, the best time to buy was yesterday or today. And if it's a good time for you in terms of financially, it makes sense right now, don't expect things to get cheaper tomorrow necessarily than they are today.
Yeah, and even if things stay consistently, but you're into a place and you find the right situation and everything that you like, the stuff that is selling, typically is something where, you can make the math make sense, and that's why people are deciding to go that route. You can pick your, some buildings have multiple units within the same building. You get to pick, which one you like more and view it more than once, and make sure that, if there's deficiencies found in an inspection, that you can get those taken care of before you move in, as opposed to just having to be fine with things as is, right? So I think it's a great time to get into the market, great time to upsize. I think that's where your big opportunities are. For downsizing right now, I think it's depending on how long you've been in your place or what you want to get into. I think that's an interesting conversation on whether or not now is the best time to do that. But that's also why you sit down with honest people and they'll give it to you straight. I had one client last week that I was chatting with that was thinking of potentially, downsizing, has more space than they need. And I just kind of said, I don't think the math makes sense for you guys, at least right now. Doesn't mean that it won't, a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. But right now, I think with what they're trying to accomplish doesn't make sense with what they're wanting to go to. So yeah, just important to have people having honest conversations with you.
Exactly. That's one of the most important things in any business, Austin, is just being honest with people, not seeing them as another transaction, which we hope that nobody ever treats people that way. But the reality is that sometimes happens. So I'm not saying you should talk to 3 different realtors before you pick a realtor, but and not even just realtors. I'm not saying you should talk to anyone, like multiple people in the same profession before you choose one. But if somebody gives you a feeling that maybe that's not the right choice for you, don't be afraid to ask somebody else. That's what I'm trying to say. Totally. Right? It never hurts to get a second opinion. So just always keep that in the back of your mind. Last thing I'll leave you guys with, as long as Austin doesn't want to throw any more knowledge bombs at you, is transfers. So renewals and transfers is what I really mean by this. So over the next couple of years, there's going to be a massive amount of people coming up for renewal. And the reason is because a lot of people bought homes in 2020 and 2021, especially in 2021. That was a huge year for the real estate market. And that means that anybody that took a 5-year mortgage, which at the time I'm thinking most people did, given what the rates are, wouldn't you agree, Austin?
Yeah, correct. There's going to be a ton of people that are probably up for renewal within the next 2 years for sure. I think that's
exactly
a giant percentage of people.
Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, at that time, you were looking at rates around 1 or 2%, which, I'm going to hold on to that rate as long as I possibly can. So that makes sense. But why I want to have a quick chat about this is lenders are now making it easier to switch between different lenders when you come up for renewal. So typically you would have to qualify when you transferred at what's called the stress test rate, which right now means you have to qualify at 2% higher than whatever that mortgage rate is. Now, if you don't change lenders, they're not going to have to qualify you at that rate. They're just going to qualify you based on the current rate. And as long as everything looks good to them, they're going to offer you a renewal. If you take that renewal, nothing really changes. But what's nice is now they've made it a lot easier for you to transfer at renewal. And why that's a good thing is now you have options. Now you have more competition, and that means that you as a consumer are going to see better rates because of the fact that people are now competing for your business. And that's where I come in. I come in and I say, look, here's the options that are currently available to you. You can either stay with who you're with, or you can look at any one of these other options. And here's why I would consider whatever option I think is best. And I'm honest with people. I'm like, look, like the option you're getting from your lender right now, based on that rate alone, that's a great option. But there's other things you should consider. Here's the other things you should consider. If you're motivated by your payments and by what your rate is, then that's your best option. And I'll tell people that. And does that mean I get paid, or does that mean that I make money? No, it doesn't. But that's not why we're in the business, right? Obviously, we want to make money, but we also want to help people and give them good advice. So just know that you have more options than you think, and it's always worthwhile when you come up for renewal to find out what those options are before you sign that renewal.
Very well said. Well, that is our smorgasbord of episodes all wrapped up into 17 minutes. Thank you guys for joining us for another episode, and we'll see you guys next week.